Today we'll discuss again Citrix architecture and how the Citrix like a delivery process that's called as a enumeration and launch process. So as we already discussed, Citrix virtual apps and desktops, formerly known as ZenApp and Zen Desktop, is the VDA like a comprehensive VDA solution provided by the Citrix. Virtual desktops and applications can be delivered as part of VDA. And Citrix uses at the server level FMA architecture on the clients to server ICA or ICA to deliver the resources. And mostly we can deliver applications and desktops. So here we can deliver Citrix virtual apps and Citrix virtual desktops can be delivered to the users. And coming to the components we have, architecture wise, we have FMA. So, before we have IMA architecture. IMA stands for, say in ZenApp 6 and 6.5, we have IMA architecture. It's called as independent
Independent management
Management
architecture.
independent management
Management architecture.
architecture. So most of the server components in the ZenApp we have form and how they are going to communicate. All these we have IMA architecture and the port numbers are 2512, 2513.
513.
So two port numbers have been used, but from 7.x we don't have IMA. In that place, FMA, FlexCast Management Architecture, using the Citrix FMA, virtual apps and desktops, we have the unified architecture. So that means both the main difference is both ZenApp and Zen Desktop has been integrated into single solution called as FMA, and the main feature is to run the multiple versions of Citrix app and desktops from the single integrated kind of console, integrated kind of administration have been provided by the FMA. And to deliver the desktops, applications, provisioning services, cloud, Zen mobile, all also can be integrated using FMA. We can connect even with the Citrix Cloud also. And coming to the architecture components, on the endpoint device wise, on the user devices, either the user devices may connect from the home or from the
Yes,
office
yes.
also, either from the office or from home. Then on the user device wise, any device is supported. It's not only the Windows, any device is supported, and on that we need Citrix Workspace app or Citrix receiver. So Citrix Workspace app or Citrix receiver, or prior to that it's called as online agent also. Okay, so if you come to those names in presentation server, it used to called as a program neighborhood agent. So it's called as PN agent. PN agent means program neighborhood agent. In ZenApp 6, it used to called as online agent. In 6.5, it's a receiver. Now, workspace app. Okay, so whatever it may be, technically that is ICA client. That is the ICA client. So what is going to happen with the ICA client is, what is going to happen with the ICA client? In order to receive the applications on the client side, we required one client to connect or to establish the connection or to receive the applications also. We required the name of this is, we have the different names. In presentation server, we used to call it as a program neighborhood agent and online agent, receiver and workspace app. And coming to ICA port numbers, ICA stands for Independent computing architecture. So what are the port numbers? What are the port
1494
numbers? Yeah,
2598
1494.
2598
Yeah, 25.
98.
98. Say here why we need two port numbers we'll discuss. Even in IMA also, 2512 is for server to server connection. So if we have two Xenap servers, those servers are communicating using 2512. 2513 is used for server to console connection. So what is the console name in 7.x is Studio. Okay, if the server want to report or want to communicate with the console, we need 2513. 2512 is used for server to server communication. In the FMA, we are using either 80 or 443 for the communication. In the real time, definitely we need to use 443 itself. Okay, so in the real time, we need to use 443 itself for the communication. Okay, then ICA also having two port numbers. This is normal connections are going to establish. So connections are going to establish using ICA. So connections are going to establish using the ICA, whereas 2598 is used for session reliability. Okay, so what is that session reliability we'll discuss. In the ICA, for session reliability, we are using 2598. Normal connections are going to be established using 1494. What is the concept of 2598 is, I have connected to session. Already I have connected to my session. I lost my network. Okay, so I maybe I went to a lift or a remote location. Just for some time, I lost my network. Then if the user lost the session, again he need to connect from starting, means user experience is very bad. So with the session reliability feature, if the user have been disconnected to the network, within 3 minutes, if the user have been retained his network, the session is going to be connected back. But that reconnection is not using 1494. Citrix has provided session reliability feature. And what is the duration?
3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes. Okay, it can be configurable, but by default, security reasons also, better to give 3 minutes or 180 seconds. Okay, if the user session have been lost due to network connectivity, it is not going to disconnect. The user is going to wait for the session connection, and if the network have been retained within 3 minutes, the session can be continued. So this feature is called as session reliability. For the session reliability, for security reasons, again we are not using 1494. We are going to establish another connection. That's the reason we are using 2598. We are using 2598 for that. Okay? Any doubts on this? Any doubts?
No, Shrikant, good.
Okay? So once we done ICA connection on the end user side, internal users,
External.
yeah, external users. So internal users came to our office from the enterprise network they're connecting, and we have the enterprise devices, or we may have BYOD also. What is the meaning of BYOD?
Bring your own device.
Bring your
Bring
own
your own
device.
device.
Either they may have the enterprise device, or bring your own device. For the internal users, we are going to use storefront, or we can have web interface also. So we can have the storefront or web interface. For external users, Citrix gateway, or we'll call this as NetScaler. For the internal users, the access point is storefront. Okay, external users, gateway. The user, either they can connect from browser or
Application.
workspace app. Okay, so either from the agent he can connect, or from the browser also they can connect. Okay, so users can establish the connection either from the browser or from the workspace app the users are going to connect. Okay, so now here the users are connected, then assuming we have gateway, or directly the users, internal users directly can access the storefront. And here we have two firewalls, right?
Yes.
So, so this area is called as DMZ. What is that?
DMZ.
Yeah,
Demilitarized zone.
demilitarized zone. So what is this? I'll explain in the NetScaler concept. Okay, so security reasons, we are going to keep two firewalls also. Internal users can directly access the storefront. Then, like storefront is going to communicate with Active Directory, delivery controllers also, it's going to communicate. Okay, so that's all those components we'll discuss. What storefront will do, what gateway or NetScaler will do, studio, director, license server, and VDA. In the VDA also we have single session OS, multi-session OS we have. Single session OS would be on the desktop class, multi-session OS is on the server class
Server
OS.
classes.
And in order to store the all the Citrix site or form related data, we required one database. And even if the database goes down, we don't have any impact. For that, we need to go for
Localhost cache.
localhost
Localhost
cache.
cache.
Okay, so we need to go for the localhost cache. We need to take care. Okay, even if that all the components, if one controller goes down, how the high availability, if license server goes down, how the high availability, if SQL server goes down, what about the high availability, what is the impact if the Active Directory is down, okay, if storefront is down. So for all these, we need to configure high available environment, and we need to plan the backups also for all these in our job role. Okay, so those all, even how we can design high available Citrix infrastructure, we'll discuss. High available Citrix infrastructure, how we are going to design also, so we'll discuss. Okay, so then the main component in the Citrix virtual app and desktop infrastructure is controller is the main component, which is the central management component. Okay, so in order to administrate most of the things, and in order to perform provisioning of the missions, connection brokering, authentications, communicating with all the components, and communication brokering with the users to deliver the desktops and applications, to set up the policies for optimization purpose, how to optimize our Citrix application delivery, load balancing, internal load balancing. This is for the user-wise load balancing would be done through NetScaler. But internal, how to take the load balancing decisions, all these have been taken care by delivery controller, the main component. And we don't have only one delivery controller in the real time. We'll have the multiple delivery controllers in the in the enterprise form we are going to design, because even one controller goes down, it shouldn't have a single point of crash. We need to maintain multiple servers. Okay, so then mostly here we are going to use 443 itself, and data from the controllers are going to stored in site database. So we have three types of database. What are all those also we discuss, but our database server should be SQL server. And in order to install the delivery controller, desktop class operating systems are not supported. Okay, so it's definitely be required Windows servers itself. Okay, so Windows servers, mostly the latest versions are not supporting even 2012 also. From 2016 to 2022 are supported. And .NET Framework, PowerShell, Visual C++ are mandatory. Then for the site, at least one database is required, and we are going to use SQL Server. In our lab environment, we will use SQL Server Express Edition, but in the real time, we should have a dedicated SQL Server should be installed, and for the high availability, we need to configure cluster or replications or mirroring. Is even we have local host cache, high availability of the SQL server also is very important for the production servers. Hence, SQL server administrators will configure clustering also. SQL server clustering also we are going to configure. Okay, so then here we are going to install the database, and all the user data or application data, server details, all the meta information regarding our site is going to be stored in our database. And for the Citrix 7.x environment, in order to configure the databases, we need three types of databases. The same SQL server itself, but in that server, we are using three databases. The main important one is, say here these three database names are very important. First one is site database, second one is logging database, third one is monitoring database. Site database stores all our site meta information or configuration details are going to store, and who are the users are connected, their session state, and all their connection information have been stored at the site database. This is very important. And logging all administrative events. That means we have assumed 10 administrators in our company or in that project. Whatever we have performed, user logging I'm not talking. Administrative events have been logged in configuration logging. We all the 10 guys, whatever the changes we have performed, all those changes have been stored in configuration logging. Say, I'll tell one example. Someone deleted one desktop, or someone deleted one desktop group or application desktop group or catalog. Who deleted that can be stored in configuration logging. Means everyone will have our own administrative rights, and we will perform those administrative operations with our username. All those details at what time we have performed those changes, all are going to be recorded in the configuration logging. In the configuration logging, we are going to get all the details. What is the advantage of configuration logging is, this is used for tracking of all administrative events, and even for the auditing purpose also we are going to use configuration logging. For the auditing purpose also we are going to use configuration logging. And for the Citrix environment, for the monitoring purpose, we are using director. And in the monitor database, all director data is going to be stored. That means director is going to fetch all the details from the monitoring database. So here we have three types of database. One is site database, second one is logging database, third one is monitoring
Monitoring
database.
database.
So these are the three types of databases we have. Very, very important one is,
Site database.
the very, very important is the site database.
The
Okay,
database.
so using the site database, we are going to get these all the all our meta information. Even if the site database goes down also, even if the site database goes down also,
Uh, Existing sessions.
no, localhost cache will comes into the picture.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so even if the site database goes down also, the localhost cache would be there. Okay, and for the SQL server in the real time, we don't use express edition, only for the small environments, or you have any POC kind of a proof of concept kind of environments, we'll use the express edition, or even for the training purpose also we'll use express edition. In the real time, either standard or enterprise editions we need to use. Even we have localhost cache for the production. SQL server also failover clusters or availability groups or database replications using mirroring. Definitely we need to design with SQL server administrator. Any of these we need to set up. And authentication wise, in the SQL server, we have two types of authentication: Windows authentication and SQL server authentication. Both have been supported by the Citrix. Both have been supported by the Citrix. Okay. And definitely, localhost cache provides a high availability even if the database goes down. Okay, say what is that localhost cache considerations, those also we'll discuss. Then another very, very important component is mostly the server component is the controller, and which of the desktops we want to deliver to the users or applications we want to deliver to the users. On that servers, we need to install VDA. VDA, that server or maybe desktop class. It's maybe a physical server or a virtual machine or maybe a cloud-based instance also is possible. Okay, so definitely which of the desktops or servers we want to deliver to the users, we need to install virtual delivery agent. With the virtual delivery agent, we can deliver our desktops or applications to the end users. Normally, here the workspace app, so workspace app is communicating directly with the VDA server or desktop or single session OS or multi session. But by default, directly that communication is not establishing. In order to deliver all this at the enterprise level, we have communication brokering is happening. That process we'll discuss, but directly that workspace app is connecting that to VDA using the ICA, and that session, what is that VDA is there in the data center or cloud, can be delivered to the user. But by default, it is not that much straightforward. At the enterprise level, we have storefront, controllers, the complete enumeration end-to-end process we'll discuss in the today's session. Okay, but by default, that on the client side, what is the workspace app is connecting to a VDA on server or VDA on desktop, or I can call that as VDA for single session OS or VDA for
Multi-session only.
multi-session OS. What is the meaning of single session OS is one user can connect With the multi-session OS, multiple users can simultaneously can access server, either apps or desktops on that multi-session OS we have installed, and that's users are going to connect from the any device, anywhere, any connection using the ICA protocol. Using the ICA protocol, we are going to connect. Okay, so in this process, VDA should be installed on our missions. Okay, and here the VDA communicates to the broker service in the controller. VDA to, okay, so here try to understand one important step. VDA to controller, the communication should happen at every time. Okay, if the VDA to controller, the communication is not happening, our uh, desktops goes to unregistered stage. Say your desktops are in unregistered stage means in the unregistered stage, what is happening? VDA to controller communication is not happening. If the VDA to controller communication is not happening, then our desktops can't be delivered to the users, and those goes to unregistered
Unregistered.
state. Unregistered state. And the communication between VDA to controller is going to happen using 80 or 443. The VDA to controller communication is happening using 80 or 443 is going to communicate. Okay, so using the 482, 443, the communication is going to happen. Okay, so then directly user can't access that which VDA you need to connect all these decisions. Mostly controller will do. That process itself we are calling as enumeration process, and in the enumeration communication brokering is going to happen. Okay, so then licenses also we need to verify before delivering this to the user. And storefront, say before storefront, say that name is called as web interface. So web interface itself is called as storefront. Okay, so previously we used to call as a web interface in Zenap 6, but now that is called as storefront. Web interface or storefront is a web-based console where users can log in either from the browser or from Citrix Workspace app. Mostly the internal users are going to use the main their interface to access the resources is web interface URL or from the storefront URL. It's a web-based application which is deployed on top of Microsoft IaaS. Microsoft Application Server and Web Server is IaaS, stands for Internet Information System. Okay, so which is IaaS based application, and users are going to access the storefront. Okay, so the storefront, the internal users are going to authenticate, okay, the users and manage the stores of desktops and applications. The main point of access to the internal users is storefront, external users is Citrix Gateway or NetScaler. So what is the meaning of store? So normally if you go to a grocery store, you can get the grocery. In the Citrix store, what is available? Apps and desktops are available. Okay, that's we can access through storefront. Okay, so we can access those through storefront. Okay, so we are going to get the desktops and applications. The users directly, they don't access the controller. We are going to access the storefront. And even for the storefront also, we will have multiple storefront servers. If one storefront server goes down, we can deliver the applications from another storefront server. We can deliver from the another storefront server. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So then on the client side, we require workspace app. Browser is not only enough. Browser is enough only for the connection purpose. But to receive the applications, definitely we required
Workspace app.
Citrix workspace.
workspace app also is required in order to receive the applications. Definitely we require the workspace app also is required. So then uh, workspace app on demand delivers the applications to the users and uses the ICA protocol. Then studio. So what is the studio is the main administration console. Administrators are going to use studio. Most of our job will perform as the administrators from the studio. Studio is going to communicate with controllers. Studio is going to communicate with the controllers, and we have two types of studios. Web Studio is a web management console. Administration purpose only we will use, and the Citrix Studio.
Citrix Studio.
In the Citrix, by default we are getting administrator, but later we can delegate the administration to multiple users also. To the multiple users also, we are going to access. Okay. So then here we have the web studio. Mostly we'll use the MMC base itself, Microsoft Management Console. Citrix Studio will use for the administration purpose. Previously, console to server communication is going to happen using 2513, but here again they're going to use 80 or 443 itself. Okay, and director is again a web-based kind of means a browser itself. L1 help desk people, monitoring people will use to monitor our Citrix environment, session details, login details, networking, all these details we are going to get from the director. Mostly the
Director.
monitoring we are going to
Correct.
perform
Citrix
from
director.
every day from the morning to evening. We are in the support job. Definitely we need to go through monitoring wise. Director itself we need to use. Okay, so then in order to verify whether we have the valid Citrix licenses or not, we need to use the Citrix license server. So before delivering desktops or applications, definitely we need to verify whether we have the enough licenses are there or not. And we need to purchase the licenses because Citrix is not an open source. It's an enterprise license product. And definitely we require licensing. Okay, so we need to purchase the licenses, and when we are delivering the licenses to the users, like controller is going to verify whether we have the valid license is there or not. And if the license is there, then only the resources are going to deliver to the users. Otherwise, those are not going to deliver. Okay, so then we don't use mostly on the hosting side. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think network loss. One second. Yeah, say in order to verify whether we have valid licenses or not, so definitely Citrix need to use Citrix license server. Okay, so then in order to host the Citrix infrastructure, we don't use the physical servers mostly. Very rare use cases We'll use the physical servers because we don't get much benefits by using the physical resources. We are going to use the virtual infrastructure. For that, we need the hypervisor. Citrix supports all the three hypervisors. One is Citrix having their own hypervisor called as a Citrix hypervisor or Gen server, or VMware having ESXi server, or we can call as vSphere. Then we have Microsoft having Azure, sorry, Hyper-V. And cloud-wise also, it is supporting AWS, Azure, GCP also. Okay. So once we got this hypervisor, or nowadays in the latest versions, it is supporting cloud also, we can host. So then in the hosting wise, we required either physical servers or hypervisors or cloud also. Okay, so we don't get much benefits with the physical. We are going to use the hypervisors. And coming to hypervisor, Citrix supporting Citrix hypervisor, or that itself is Gen server. Then VMware having a ESXi server. Then Hyper-V from Microsoft. And cloud-wise also Azure, AWS, Google Cloud Platform also. And additional to this, Citrix itself having their own cloud also called
Cloud.
as Citrix Cloud. Even we can use Citrix Cloud also. So these all the hosting infrastructures we are going to use. And hosting technology wise, we have single instance management. In the single instance management, even when we go for the thousands of servers, we can maintain only single instance. And for that, we are going to use, previously we used to work with the PVS. Now we are going to use MCS. PVS stands for Provisioning Services. MCS is used for Mission Creation Services. Both are the two different techniques. Okay, for MCS, hypervisor or cloud is required. Okay, so PVS supports both physical or virtual. Okay, so either physical or virtual, both are supported. Okay, any doubts?
So MCS, like it will not support physical record.
No. MCS uses linked clone or maybe a cloning kind of technology. It's mandatory, it required hypervisor.
Okay.
It's just a cloning kind of thing.
Okay.
Physically
Thanks.
cloning is not possible with MCS. For that, we can use PVS. Both are two different technologies underlying, but the main advantage is single instance management. As you might tell, I want 10,000 desktops for the users. 10,000 desktops I no need to create. Only one I'll create one VM. I'll create, and I'll clone or I'll create those into images. Only one is going to be created into thousands of desktops. Okay, so then I want to update my desktops. Update also can be done only one time. Rollback, if there is any problem is there, rollback also can be done only one time. That means 10,000 desktops normally update is very challenging kind of part. But what is the advantage we are going to get through MCS here? What is the advantage we are getting through MCS here? Either through MCS or PVS, single instance management is possible.
Single instance management possible.
Okay, I hope you understand, right? What is the meaning of single instance management? One time only we need to create, one time only we need to update, one time only we need to roll back. Even deletion also is only one time. Even you have 1,000 desktops or 10,000 desktops, easy to administrate, easy to provision, okay, easy to update, easy to roll back. These all the advantages we are going to get using PBS or MCS. Otherwise, I need to provision thousands of missions. I need a lot of admins to do those.
Yes, Srikant, here also we use golden image or base image,
Yes,
Citrix
yes,
also.
yeah. In both PBS MCS, one image we need to create. That's general term is golden template we will call.
Okay.
Okay, so VMware View also supports linked clone kind of technology, but here we'll call that as MCS,
MCS.
Services.
mission creation
Services.
services, PBS, which is the older one.
PVS.
PVS
PBS
older
is the
one.
older one. MCS on top of hypervisors we got, but PBS supports physical and virtual also, whereas MCS supports virtual hypervisor base
What's right?
and cloud base also. Okay, so then if you want to use Citrix PBS, then we required provisioning services also. If you want to use Citrix PBS for our environment, we are not going to use MCS, then we required one more component called as Citrix provisioning services also. For that, we require PBS servers are required. So these all will discuss in the Citrix environment. In the Citrix environment, we'll discuss PBS part. We'll discuss. Okay. So then we should have both the capabilities. Either we need to use PBS or MCS. And for the external users, okay, we will use Citrix Gateway. Okay, say when the users want to connect outside our enterprise network or firewall, then we need to use virtual apps and desktops.
What's your action stuff?
Okay, so formally we have Access Gateway and NetScaler Gateway, and in order to connect to those connections, we need this, and mostly we are going to keep this in the demilitarized zone. Those we are going to host in the demilitarized zone. Okay, then there
Here
is one.
also we used UAG Srikant, Unified Access Gateway. VMware we actually used
The
UAG, right?
VMware, that is the VMware product name.
Yeah.
So here this is Citrix NetScaler or Gateway.
Okay.
Okay, and there is one more solution is there called as SD-WAN. SD-WAN is used. I have one remote branch. There I don't have much network, and it's very remote location also. At that location, to deliver the applications at the to improve the performance, we need to keep one SD-WAN. It's going to cache all those applications. What is the main advantage is in your office locations, if any branches are very remote and they have some latency issues, then in that use case, we need to use SD-WAN. It will accelerate the performance of application delivery even in the very low latency networks also. Okay, so I have very remote and far location. My Citrix data center is in Hyderabad. I assume I have one remote location in Andaman somewhere. I have my branch office. Okay, so they want to connect to Hyderabad data center or US data center. Their experience may be little slow. In those locations, we need to keep SD-WAN.
Even.
Then they're going
SD1.
to optimize the performance. Okay, so then we'll discuss how the end-to-end enumeration process is going to start. So now here we have Citrix users will have the workspace, either NetScaler or storefront. Then we will have database connection, controller communication, VDAs. Okay, so then directly the Citrix protocol, they're going to connect. Okay, so now the broker service, like after the connection is going to be established, we'll discuss this enumeration process. So, and what are the important port numbers also very, very important from the interview wise. I'll revise some of the ports. And Citrix broker service is using 80 and 443. VDA to controller communication also uses the Citrix broker service itself. Okay, that port is 80 and 443, and ICA port is 1494 and 2598.
1494, 259.
And previously we have XML service 80 or 443 itself. Storefront to controller communication is going to happen using Citrix XML service. Storefront to controller communication. Okay, so now here, who is our XML server? Previously in the Zen app itself is our XML server. In this use case, our controller itself is the
XML server.
our
XML
controller
server.
itself is the XML server. Okay, so then VDA to delivery controller already 80 or 443. Okay, so we have ICA, we already discussed, and controller to director to controller also 80 or 443. Then here license server wise, we have three important ports, very, very important. License server web-based management console. We can administrate even license server also through the web-based console, and that port number is 8082. And the controller to license server communication, Citrix, most of the Citrix products will communicate over license server using using 27,000.
27,000.
27,000. Okay, so then
This is the default port, right?
a default port. It's not only with the Citrix itself, any of the Citrix applications, maybe Gen Center may use, NetScaler may use. So for that, we need the license server communication between the Citrix components and the license server. That is 27,000. And vendor daemon is 7279. What is this vendor daemon also? I will explain. 7279. Say here, can you tell me what are the Citrix port license server port numbers? 8082 for the console port. The actual license port is 27,000.
7,000.
And vendor
Vendor
daemon
daemon
port is
727.
7279.
727.
Okay. So then gateway, these all are the NetScaler wise, I'll tell. And SQL server by default port is 1433.
1433.
SQL server by default port is 1433. And Active Directory port is 389. That is
389.
LDAP port.
Yes.
That is the LDAP port 389. And we need to use the 636 also for the LDAP security. For the LDAP port also we need to use 636. Okay, in the real time we don't use 389. Mostly we'll configure LDAP security also. Then here we have LDAP ports are 389 and 636 we have.
636.
Okay, so then we have the Citrix Studio and the director also. Most of them are 443, you try to remember. Okay, even if it supports 80 also, in the real time we'll configure the certificates, all those. Then it's going to communicate using 443.
443.
FMA port numbers means what you will tell, that also 80 or 443 itself.
443.
Okay. So then here,
Okay.
the enumeration process wise, so we'll have the workspace app. The workspace app, okay, so is going to communicate with the workspace app is going to communicate with the storefront using either 80 or 443. It's also mostly 443 itself. And storefront will show the authentication page. It is going to display the authentication page. Okay, so whenever we display the authentication page, user will enter his login, but in the real time, we will enable single sign-on also or pass through each and every time user no need to enter the credentials. Okay, so now when the user type that like a storefront URL, it presents a login page. Okay, in that user is going to enter his username and password, his domain credentials. User is going to log in, and those credentials have been shared to storefront. Storefront will communicate with storefront will communicate with the Active
Active
Directory.
Active
Directory.
Directory.
Okay, say in the Zenap 6 and 6.5, first web interface won't communicate with Active Directory.
Active
Web
Directory.
interface will send to XML server itself. That is a Zenap server. So now here we have controller on behalf of that. But here authentication is going to be sent through authentication user has been sent to
Active Directory.
Active
Active
Directory.
Directory, and Active Directory is going to communicate. Storefront will communicate with the
Storefront to
uh, yeah. So now user will like a storefront will send those to Active Directory. This is secure because unauthorized user is not coming till unauthorized user is not coming till controller, it is not coming. But
controller.
previously, even if the unauthorized user also is coming till that XML server. So now here storefront itself is communicating with the Active Directory, and
Active
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 Directory.
Directory
Directory.
will return whether that user is success or not. Then user will get login to the store. If that is the valid credentials, then only the user is going to log in. Okay, so then the enumeration process is going to log in. If the user is successful, okay, so if the user is successful, then the enumeration is going to happen. After successful authentication, storefront will pass those user credentials to the delivery controller. In Zenap 6, what's going to happen is, before itself those used to send to XML broker, but now instead of XML broker, delivery controller itself is going to do this. Okay, then using the XML port also 80 or 443 for the list of resources available for specific user. And again, delivery controller will contact again the Active Directory to identify the user identity and group memberships. Say here every user in the Active Directory will have an SID. That SID is called as every user will have one security ID is there, and groups also will have one group ID. That SIDs we are going to retrieve, and group IDs also we are going to retrieve. Then controller will contact the site database, and it will verify what are the list of resources, either desktops or applications that user has authorized. Okay, that means I may have 100 applications in my enterprise. I may not have access to all the 100 users or 100 applications or 100 VMs. Which of the desktops or applications I have authorized, those have been assigned to the user groups or SIDs. Users
SID.
or groups. In the real time, mostly we'll use the groups itself, and that list have been stored in the site database. Controller will contact the site database by giving the SID and group IDs of the user, which of the desktops that user has authorized. That list, okay, controller is going to send to storefront. Storefront will display to the user. Then user will get the icons of the applications or desktops which he has authorized. This process is called as enumeration process.
Enumeration.
So in the enumeration process, we are not getting the desktops. We are getting the list of desktops or applications which user has authorized. Then once we click on that application icon or desktop icon, then the launch process is going to start. Okay, say in the resource launch process, first we have the enumeration process. In the enumeration process, we have the components are in the enumeration process. What are the components we have? Citrix Workspace
Storefront,
App or Receiver, yeah, Storefront,
Mhm.
Active Directory,
Active
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 Directory to
Directory,
Directory,
controller,
Storefront, Storefront to controller, controller to again the
controller,
controller
request
is
goes
site
to,
database,
no, again goes to
database,
Active Directory, Active
Active
Directory to
Directory,
again controller, controller to database, then database will give the list of desktops and application list that would be delivered to Storefront
icons,
in the form of XML format. XML will display that to the user. Then user will get the details of which of the desktops and applications he has authorized. This process is called as
enumeration.
enumeration process. Then once user clicks
enumeration.
on that application, then like the launching process is going to start. The user clicks on the icon which we have in the store or browser, then again that request would be sent to storefront, storefront to, in this use case, again it no need to check with the Active Directory, already user authentication and authorization is happen. Okay, now storefront contacts the controller and the controller will check the database to identify the most suitable VDA. Okay, then delivery controller contacts that VDA. Okay, so then here we have a different process for server OS or desktop OS and which type of desktop also we have. Okay, but here controller is going to identify which VDA need to be given to the user. Okay, so then VDA returns a session key to the controller and the controller sends that session key information that is having all the connection details to the storefront. Storefront put that connection information in one of the ICA file, okay, say in the .ica file, and that sends to the device. Then who will understand that ICA file is? Browser can't understand. Okay, the 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 workspace app or receiver is going to understand that and contacts the VDA. Now this is not communicating through storefront or communication broker. Already the receiver or workspace app got the details of to which VDA it need to contact. Who took the decision? Controller took the decision which VDA need to be assigned to the user and the desktop have been attached. Then VDA notifies the controller about the connection setup and it asks for the permission from the license wise also. Then controller contact the license server using the port number 27,000 and to check or validate whether we have the enough licenses are there or not. Okay, if the license server grant the permission, that would be sent to VDA. Then like even it will update to the site database also about regarding this user session data. Then the VDA is going to be delivered to the users using ICA protocol 1494, and if the session disconnects, session reliability using 2598. Say in the application launch process, user is going to click on the application icon, then those details would be sent to storefront, storefront to controller, controller to VDA. That will contact the database VDA sessions and identify the best VDA. Depends upon the VDA desktop pools and which type of catalog we have. And once you identify that, it is going to share those VDA details, which VDA user need to connect all these details to the storefront. storefront will prepare one file called .ica file, and that file would be given to the user. The workspace app will understand, others can't understand that ICA file, browser can't understand that, receiver will understand that ICA, and it will establish the connection with that VDA directly using the port number 1494. Then whenever that request comes to the VDA, VDA again contacts the controller, initialize the setup, but the controller will validate the licensing part, and once the licensing is done, then we are going to validate whether we have the enough licenses or not, and we need to make sure that applications are delivered to the users over ICA. If the license are